A lot of people have contacted me recently about how to set themselves up as solo environmental consultants. And I found that most of them have made the same mistake as I made when I started up, which is not thinking through their branding and marketing properly. So I thought I'd put together this quick presentation explaining how I do it. So who am I to talk? Well, I've been supporting businesses going green for, well over a decade. And for the last 5 years of that, I've been this one-man band, Terra Firma Limited, my boutique consultancy as I like to think of it. Now, those have been pretty tough 5 years because we've had the global recession, all its fallout, and obviously a green environmental is seen as something that I like to have or discretionary spend. But I'm still here and I'm doing as well as ever with a client roster that includes a lot of blue chip and other large clients. I've also written 2 books, The 3 Secrets Green Business and more recently The Green Executive, and I'll come back to them later because they're an important part of my marketing. Now, before we go any further, I have to say that I didn't invent the marketing methods I'm describing here, and I'll give credit where credit is due at the very end. Okay, before we start marketing, we have to think of our market. Here's my take on environmental markets, and it's adopted from a model for consultants by John Nyland of Success 1-to-1. At one end, you have the commodity markets, things like environmental management systems, environmental impact assessments, where people know what they're trying to do and they know how much they should spend for it. So the people competing in that arena, in that market, compete on price. That's very difficult for a solo consultant, as we'll find out, because other people can beat you on price because they can do volume. In the mid-market, there's slightly more specialised things like BREEAM for buildings, life cycle assessment, carbon footprint, resource efficiency, and training. And in those areas, yes, people are price sensitive, but they are willing to trade price for quality and reputation to a certain extent. But at the very top end, there's less competition and there's a lot of value. If you can help people with strategy and business development and all those specialist topics that are really tricky to get right, then that's a lot of value for your client and you can charge a premium for them. So obviously, with less competition, that's a more comfortable part of the market to go for. One of my early mistakes was trying to take on the big guys at their own game. And that's a bit like a sniper trying to take on battle tanks in a war. They're never going to win. Instead, you need to play to your strengths and their weaknesses, and importantly, choose your battlefield. Now, strengths. The big boys love tendering because they've got tender writing teams and they can churn them out and play the odds, and they've got loads of junior staff to throw at projects once they've brought them in with their reputation. Clients tend to see them as low risk, so with all that added together, they will almost always beat you in a straight fight tendering situation. Where the one-man band is stronger is you as an individual person can build trust with clients and prospective clients. And you have the freedom to invest in relationships and what we call thought leadership, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And where I got it wrong at first was to see myself as a poor man's version of a big consultancy. But I soon learned you can't beat them in price because they have volume and this low risk thing as well, whereas one-man bands can be seen as high risk and certainly. So now I go for the premium brand and I charge premium prices. Now, premium tends to mean brand me because you're pushing yourself forward as your key asset. A lot of people get very nervous about this because they think they're going to have to act like some get-rich-quick merchant with a neat haircut and bright white teeth, selling you the next greatest thing. It doesn't have to be like that. I've got a face like a bag of spanners and I've managed it. So here's my website just to show off some of my branding. There's obviously the big mugshot showing Gareth Kane is the key face of Terra Firma. And below that, obviously, you've got my book, The Green Executive, with, again, my name on it. So it's endorsing myself. It's showing what I have achieved already. To my left, you might be able to make it out. And if you saw the website live, it rotates through a series of endorsements by key clients. So again, it's building trust because other people saying you're good is much better than you saying you're good. If you look at the overall look and feel of it, I've gone down the sort of business-like approach rather than the sort of green eco-cliche approach. The logo has this sort of slight feel of a warming planet going from pale blue up to dark blue, but that's about it. And the other thing I've done is I've got a Your Business section where people coming onto my website can decide which area of the website to go to by clicking on their own business, and that gives them services and case studies that are relevant to them. And that's, again, sort of outward looking, easier for prospects to find the information they need. Okay, marketing methods. Why would anybody want to come and look at my website or anything else? Well, this is how I used to think bringing a client should work. I would make contact with somebody, either face-to-face at a meeting or online, or I'd ring them up, and obviously they would have a need, so we'd set up a meeting to discuss it, make an agreement over the proposal, deliver the goods, and then take the check. So far so good, but the reality is it means crossing your fingers and hoping that you just happen to bump into the right person at exactly the right time they want to buy your services. And that's really hit and miss, and it seriously doesn't work for the solo consultant. You end up on a constant wild goose chase, because people might say, yes, come and talk to me, because they're a bit intrigued about what you do, but they aren't ready to buy. And you just end up getting very anxious about trying to get enough work in to keep your business running, and that anxiousness impairs your ability to market and sell and impress them. So you need a much better system. This is a schematic of the system I need. First of all, at the top of this, I make a big effort to attract a large number of interested people, and I entice them into my process using free value. I give them something that they will find useful for free. Then I have a system of keeping in touch with them, continuing to provide value until they are ready to buy, and then we move forward if and when they decide to do so. So I don't have to push them. It's the prospect decides they want to buy and they move it forward, which is a lot less stressful for me, because when the phone rings, they're pre-sold on the idea. So let's look how I do it. And this is where the whole thought leadership comes in, because yes, you can do search engine optimization and whatnot, but it's the thought leadership showing you how good you are by providing written or video or whatever podcast that demonstrates your knowledge and ability and the way you approach problems. Blogging is a fantastic part of this, because I update my blog 3 times a week. You can see it's well branded me with the semi-humorous megaphone and all the rest of it, and that attracts a lot of people in. Another thing is white papers. If there's a particular service you want to provide, then you write a 5 or 6 page report or document explaining how to do that, the pros and cons, something that's useful. Don't worry about giving too much away. People will still come to you. Put it on your website, advertise it elsewhere, and that attracts people in. And obviously, workshops, another thing. At the end of my workshops, I quite often ask people if they want to keep in touch with me, give me their business card, and I'll sort that out for them. And in all of this, you're looking for permission to keep in touch. And this is very, very important, keeping in touch, because with several of my clients, it's more than a year between our first contact and them being ready to use my services. So, they would just forget about me if they just bumped into me at an event and I wasn't constantly keeping in touch with them. Because of this, I have had to automate the keep in touch system. You can't keep ringing, hundreds of people every month. And the linchpin is the Low Carbon Agenda, which is my monthly email newsletter. Actually, it's not really a newsletter, because very little of the content is about me and my company. Most of it is about resources the reader can use. Again, providing value. And you can see the brand me is coming up here very strongly as well. And there's other ways of keeping in touch as well. If people want to subscribe to the RSS feed on your blog, that tends to be a bit more specialist. People know how to do that. And social media, we'll come to it in a bit later. And you can provide ad hoc value as well, which is just one-offs. For example, all my clients get sent a copy of my book. It's providing value, reminding them there, thanking them for their custom previously, and reminding them that I'm so good I can write a book about it. Okay, we're going to move on to a slight tangent here, which is looking at how a business model matches up with the marketing. Originally, this is what my business model used to look like, and before we go any further, just note the scale here is logarithmic, so it's not linear. It goes from tens of pounds, hundreds of pounds, thousands of pounds, tens of thousands of pounds. And I was expecting people to go from free right up to spending thousands or tens of thousands of pounds in my consultancy. What happened? Most, if nearly all, the prospects I was talking to got cold feet somewhere along the line and fell between the two. And the second thing was, lots of people who have my Keep in Touch system who are really interested in what I do are not in a position to sign a cheque for thousands of pounds. So I was ignoring a huge chunk of the market. So what I've done is fill in the gap between free and loads of money with these incremental steps. If people like the free stuff, then almost all of them can afford to buy one of my books because they only cost £17 to £25. Slightly more is a single Green Academy webinar, which is my branded webinars, at £45 plus VAT each, or a set of webinars which cost somewhere in the region of hundreds of pounds. Now, my workshops cost somewhere between £500 and several £1,000, depending what people want. And then comes the consultancy, which starts off just where the workshops leave off. Now, this model does two things. Most importantly, it allows buyers to sample more and more of your wares, getting more and more value, getting used to spending their money with you, and understanding the way you work and what you will do for them. So they move forward in the relationship when they feel ready to do so, either because they trust you more or the timing suits them. So you don't have to keep chasing people. People can sample and try and sample a little bit more and work their way up. Several of my clients are towards the top end of this scale, having worked their way up from the bottom. The second thing it does is all those people out there who can't sign a cheque, they can go as far as they can afford. So they could buy a book and everybody can afford a book, or they might persuade their boss to go for the webinars, but they're not in position quite to sell you for the workshop. So you're servicing that part of the market, which is, very important. You can gain a lot of money from a lot of small purchases, provided they're automated. This model works very well with the keep in touch system because that keeps reminding people that they can move up this progression and not fall off the radar between each step. Okay, so some other key tools of the trade. I've talked about blogs, I've talked about white papers, I've talked about email newsletters. Now, everybody's talking about social media for business. Social media is great, and I'm not going to go into the mechanics of it because there's 1,000,001 gurus on the web who can help you out with all that. But here's a schematic of what I use at the minute. Every new post on my blog automatically gets announced on Twitter, and with the hashtags like #CSR, it goes out to quite a wide audience. Some of those tweets go on to LinkedIn and Facebook. LinkedIn's obviously more business-like, so I try and keep the more business stuff for it. The more informal goes to Facebook, although my Facebook profile that this goes to is my business Facebook profile. I have another one for my mates, for banter, that I don't necessarily want potential clients to see. Also going into Twitter are links to articles and other things of value or interest for that network. I also use YouTube quite a lot. I've got a Terra Infirma channel there, which this presentation's on, and that can be presented in the blog, it can be presented in Twitter, or it can go on other sites. And YouTube's great because it's a search engine, it's a very popular search engine, but it doesn't actually have that many results coming out of it, so you're in a smaller pond if you want to try and push your value forward in that way. Now, people, me included, but everyone gets obsessed with numbers in social media. How many followers they have, how many connections on LinkedIn, how many friends on Facebook. It's not important. Quality is much more important than quantity. If, say, on your email newsletter list, you have just 10 people, but all of them are likely to buy from you, it's better than having 999 who aren't. It's obvious. So don't get obsessed with numbers. The second thing that I want to talk about here is the published book, which I've mentioned quite a lot. Getting a book published is huge kudos. You go up in people's estimation massively, you get speaking opportunities, and it's an absolutely unforgettable business card. You send that to somebody, they're going to take notice. But it is a massive effort, and you certainly don't make much money on the sales. Now, my first book did pretty well. It sold over 3,000 copies the last time I found out how many it sold. And if you think that only 5% of books sell more than 2,500 copies, that's pretty good. The second book, Green Executive, was much more carefully targeted because my clients were asking me to do more and more work at boardroom level, and yet there was no book aimed at that area. So I knew there was a gap in the book market. But importantly, that market was the sort of person I wanted to talk to about my other services. So, senior, able to sign a check, interested in green issues. So it's very deliberately targeted at them. So that's an important piece of my current marketing. Right, just to sum up and add some other points, in my humble opinion, some do's and don'ts. Possibly the most importantly, you have to get it into your head that solo is a pro, not a con. It's a benefit to your client because you can provide a lot more value than some faceless big consultancy. Put value out there to demonstrate what you're worth, what you can do, and keep in touch with value. And you make yourself the go-to guy, as the Americans would say. Build a business model which allows people to sample your services at different levels, and importantly, make technology work for you, whether it's email newsletters or social media or webinars or all the rest. Use it in a way that works for you. Don't feel that you should be pushed by technology. On the don't side, never pay for marketing, and certainly not all these people trying to flog you exhibition space or advertorials, all that stuff. It's a waste of time. One advertorial will probably cost the same as my entire website cost to build, and my website will deliver a lot more value for me. But never pay for marketing beyond getting a decent website done and all the rest of it. Most of the tools are free or very low cost, things like the systems behind email newsletters and whatnot. Don't compete on price, because you'll get beaten on volume by the big guys. And don't tender unless you're reasonably sure you'll win, i.e. you've built a relationship already with that prospective client. They know you and they trust you, because you will not win on a level playing field against the big consultancies. And lastly, don't feel compelled to jump through hoops. You can always walk away. You can always say no. In particular, somebody rings you up out of the blue and says, we've got this project. Can you quote for it? I need the quote by Friday. The chances are those people have already got in mind who they want to employ, but they need 3 quotes for their own procurement process. So it's just a waste of your time. So say, no, that's not the way we work. If we have to have a series of meetings to understand what you want and build up a relationship and understand it, and you'll soon find out whether or not they're interested at all. So don't forget you can walk away. Okay, at the very start, I said I would give credit where credit's due. Here's some people I've used. The book, Getting Started in Consulting by Alan Weiss, is worth its weight in gold. Alan Weiss is well known for his book, $1 Million Consulting, but Getting Started, I think, is much better, and it probably saved my business when I read it about 2 years in the middle of the recession. If you're interested in the whole marketing concept, then Permission Marketing's very good, from Seth Godin, which is this whole idea of getting permission from the prospects for you to provide them with more stuff and actually tell them about your products and services. And there's a book called Email Marketing, which I found useful just to tweak some of the things I did in my newsletter, which has made it more effective. John Nyland and Joanna Martin are a pair of coaches. John coached me for a year in a lot of this, and he's very good on keep in touch and very good in putting yourself in your client's place and looking at your services. And that's been a theme of what I've been talking about, from the design of my website, from providing value. It's all about looking from your client's side at your business rather than proclaiming what you do. It's what do they get out of it. And his company, Success One-to-One, he's got lots of useful resources online and on YouTube and elsewhere. Joanna Martin I've never met, but she's coaches people in how to make a business around speaking. And the first time I came across this idea of the graduated business model was reading some of the free value she had put out. So it all goes around in cycles. So well worth checking out there if you can find the downloads on her site. Okay, that's all I've got to say. Being a solo environmental consultant is absolutely brilliant. I love it to bits. I'm completely unemployable. I couldn't go back to a normal job. It's great. It is hard work, but like all these things, it's worth working smart more than working hard. So all I've got to say is good luck and go for it.